Hello, students. Welcome. This is the introduction and the first section of Unit 4. This is Unit 4, the history of psychology and states of consciousness. So first I have open here is the agenda for this unit with the outline of important links, objectives, and terms. So you can see right here, I have the objectives for the unit, which you can find in the textbook. I have linked here the history and approaches, and here is the states of consciousness. These are two related topics because the origins of psychology largely begin with states of consciousness. So we do them together, and they're both kind of short. I like to start with states of consciousness just because historically I've done that, and that's kind of a pun or irony that I said that. I don't know. I like to start with states of consciousness because in the past I've had it to where prior to or during winter break we've had some activity with sleep, but we're not doing that this year. I didn't get it out in time, and because you were kind of a unit behind, and you guys were completing an exam for the school year 2020, 2021. Anyway, so here's the objectives for the unit. Like I said, this first video will talk about sleep, and then the second video for the unit will talk about the history stuff over here. Again, on the agenda, this is on Google Classroom. You can find this document, and then over here on page 2 of the agenda, you can see all the important terms broken down by module. And then here is the day by day. Right now we are kind of on day 2. We'll be focusing on the introduction to the states of consciousness and a couple of other items here I'll get into in a second. You may also notice, and this is relevant only to 2020, 2021, but this is now Happy New Year. We have just returning from winter break. I'll be joining you virtually for this first week back. I'm fine so far, but I have to be quarantined for one more week. So anyway, you'll see. Now I'm moving along. See if I follow myself. I do. Good. Now this is Unit 4A. Like I said, there's a reading guide. It's optional. So if you follow that link, it'll take you here. Again, there's me. Not required. If you want to make a copy, there's a link. If you find it helpful, this first part is about the history, and then the rest of it is about the states of consciousness. So there's that. I'll make that available. Well, it's linked on the agenda, so you can get it there if you want. And it's also linked on the slides here. Okay, so talking about this, first for this unit for 2020, 2021, so today is January 4th, 2021. I'd like for you to, as an introduction to this unit, part of the introduction to, or the history of psychology begins some of it too, I guess more formally, or maybe less formally, with personality theories. So history-wise, experimental psychology began in the late 1800s, and then personality theory followed that, and that was with Freud. So we're going to be visiting personality again a little bit later in the course, but to help with that discussion later on with things like validity and reliability, I like to get this first sample of your personality assessment, and you can do that by following the instructions here on the slides. So it's going to take you to 16 personalities. You may have done that in the career something course, but then I'd like you just to enter your results in this survey, and there'll be a couple questions about things like roles. Roles are the broad categories. Each of these roles has then 4 personality types in it. So you'll see questions about this on the form that's linked back here. Same thing here. Okay, so states of consciousness, what are they? Well, you have 2 states of consciousness, wakefulness and sleep. Wakefulness is what I'm doing right now, and if you're watching a video, you're also in a state of wakefulness. It's when you're in tune with the environment. You are capable of um, perception. You can still do some sensation in your sleep, but you're less likely, obviously, to be perceiving the environment around you. So that's sleep, temporary loss of consciousness. You're kind of shutting out the environment. As you go through different stages of sleep, you shut out more and more of the environmental stimuli, or at least react to it less. So sleep is measured and operationally defined by an electroencephalogram or an EEG, and this is when electrodes are placed on your head, and it measures the pattern of neuronal firing. And then this is what it looks like today. This measure of consciousness is often done through cognitive neuroscience. This is one semi-specific area that studies not only consciousness but things like memory and thought, language, really anything right now. Neuroscience is kind of the forefront of that. And then consciousness also here you can see it's part of the dual processing of the brain. So we're taking in information that we're aware of on a conscious track, and then also information on a non-conscious track. I don't usually like to say unconscious because later on in the course, when we talk about Freud, he talks about the unconscious. It gets a little bit confusing. It's really, I think, better as conscious and non-conscious. And we see this also through, what is this? The neural basis of consciousness. Oh, here you go. That looks exciting. You can read more about that there. But over here again, there's research on the. Oh, I have it actually right here. This book here, Subliminal: How Your Unconscious Mind Rules Your Behavior. And this was a gift from a student. And this is about how, the way that we experience the world, our perception, behavior, memory, and social judgment is largely driven by the mind's subliminal processes, so below the limits of our awareness and not by conscious ones. There's research that is, you can read more about it. I'm not going to mumble through it here, but there's research, a fair amount of research on how things outside of our awareness influence our conscious thought processes and decision making that we aren't necessarily aware of. So consciousness operates on biological rhythms. These are called the circadian rhythms. So if you take the Latin, like circa, and then dia, it's around the day. So here you go, circa the diem, circadian is circling around the day. So roughly 24-hour cycle your body operates on. So that's why when we were having lunches in school, when you weren't in school, you might still have been, like on weekends, you'd be like, oh man, 10:30, boy, I really could use some lunch now. Like, not normal human beings don't eat lunch at 10:30 in the morning. You might notice this now coming back from winter break. You might have been staying up later, getting up later than you do during the typical school year. So you might notice now that it's a different, difficult adjustment period to going back to sleep at a time that allows you to be functional during the day. For example, I don't know if I have this set to my desktop, but actually I think it's only a window. But anyway, it's like 3:30 in the morning right now. My circadian rhythm is all wacky. Um, so like the rhythm of my day and night has been thrown off. It's just the way it goes. I'm a creature of habit, which we all are, and routine, and that's biologically based on the circadian rhythm. So there's a number of different things related to this. You can see on this table, but mostly related to like your blood sugar and your activity. So like when you're hungry, when you're not hungry, when you're sleepy, when you're awake, and research indicates that um, adolescents really shouldn't be uh, doing a whole lot of like school related stuff before 9 a.m. Due to the innate circadian rhythms of adolescence. But what are you going to do? So your blood sugar rises and falls throughout the day, your physical strength, your visual acuity, all those things have peaks and valleys throughout the day. Um, so that's why I guess it's something to consider if you have well, it's a variable that doesn't get taken into account when if you have you know AP calculus at block one, you're probably at a disadvantage, or you may perform differently, not as good as if you had the same course, you know, block two or three. Uh, from my very informal research, I find that blocks two and three students tend to perform best in all the classes that I teach, just because even under a normal, 7 to 2 schedule, it's just a time when they're awake. And this is all circadian rhythms regulated by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and this is around your hypothalamus. It responds to light. This is why your phone has a blue light filter. The blue light is like the color of the sky. So when you are sensing the blue light with your cones in your eye, that message gets sent to the hypothalamus and the suprachiasmatic nucleus, this cluster of neurons. It says, hey, it's still daytime. So, because we have blue light, so we don't have to worry about releasing melatonin, which some of you may be familiar with. It's an over the counter. It's also available over the counter, but it's an endogenous hormone in your body that induces sleepiness. But the blue light delays the release of that. And this is one of the main issues with modern artificial light. People used to go to sleep when the sun went down, and they used to wake up when the sun came up. But now we have artificial light, and that messes up that whole process for us. So here again, just some of the ways that circadian rhythms get out of whack. Astronauts, what is this about? Recent progress in space physiology. I don't know. You can read about that. I was just reading about Buzz. Oh, you ever see that show, The Crown? My wife was watching it, and they were talking to the astronauts who had just come back from the Apollo, what is that, 12 first landing on the moon. So I was reading all about Buzz Aldrin and stuff because walking on the moon is cool. Neil Armstrong, number one, but tricky Buzz Aldrin. He had Neil Armstrong hold the camera the whole time on the moon, so a lot of the pictures are of Buzz Aldrin, who was the second on the moon, but that's not relevant to this class. Hypnosis is not a thing, so don't worry about being hypnotized. It's just the openness to suggestion by the person being hypnotized. It's not an actual thing. There are applications where it works, but again, this is more if you were to test it empirically, this is more a function of the willingness to be hypnotized. So the openness to suggestion, like wanting it to be true, is what happens. So, and that's called the social influence theory. Whoops. Um, and then the other one is this divided consciousness. So this being a dissociation or a so association means together, dissociation means disassociating. It's a divided consciousness, but this is again a interesting thing. If you want to learn more about some stuff like this, there's this guy. His name's The Amazing Randi. There's a link down here, and he's known for uh, testing out these kind of claims historically on like TV shows, saying that I think there might be a link on here, or it's in one of the other playlists I have, that he said that if anyone could uh, read his mind, or like, yeah, he would give them like $1 million if they could read his mind, under controlled conditions on like national television. Like he would write a number down, and then you know if they could figure it out, then he would pay them whatever, like $1 million or something. But no one's ever been successful, obviously. So there's this one of the experiments, and you can see down here at the bottom, a hypnotized woman tested by Ernest Hilgard exhibited no pain when her arm was placed in an ice bath, but asked to press a key if some part of her felt pain. She did so. To this was evidence of dissociation or divided consciousness. Proponents of social influence theory, however, maintain that people responding this way are caught up in playing the role of good subject. So it's like, what was that from Unit 1? I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I don't know. But they just had people jamming their arms into ice baths. Hypnosis. Oh, yeah. And the other thing about hypnosis is that um, it's not, even if it were to be to some extent, um, usable, it's been shown that it can't make people do things against their will or make people violate their morals. Like one of the examples, I think it's in the textbook. Someone was trying to hypnotize subjects to take like sulfuric acid and throw it in somebody's face. Obviously, it wasn't real sulfuric acid, but trying to hypnotize people to throw sulfuric acid in another person's face, and they wouldn't do it. Um, so it just, I don't know. And obviously that has to be replicated, but it's been replicated and doesn't work. Also, doesn't make you super strong, but taking your vitamins and drinking milk does. Daydreaming here also. Um, so this is the default network or the default setting of your prefrontal cortex, limbic system, and sensory systems. So without any outside stimulus, it's what helps us to just kind of explore our thoughts. This is a natural thing. This daydreaming, uh, it's a state of consciousness, or just kind of like you're in your own head. That's kind of what daydreaming is, right? There's a link at the bottom too. You can read more about that. And this is from a favorite poem of mine. It's actually now hanging in my hallway at my house. And this is old wakefulness again. So here is the EEG. So these are the wave patterns that describe the different states of consciousness. And it's the acronym to remember this is BATS D. BATS as in Baltimore, A is in Alpha, T is in turducken, S is in salami, and D is in donuts, Delta, whatever. So here, yes, goes from most wakeful to most sleepy. So active alert is beta, and alpha is a relaxed state. So this is like watching TV, and it's also coincidentally, not coincidence, the alpha waves is when you're most open to suggestion, and that's also when the same brain pattern induced by watching television. Here you go. This is more about this. Awake and attentive, low amplitude, yada yada. Awake. This is alpha again. There you can read that. states of consciousness. You can check this out. I actually put a different link over here is Sleep IQ survey. You can check that out, make a copy if you want. Explore that a little further. It has the key on it too, I believe. Sleep is a state of consciousness. Here's a link to this item over here. William Rimmer, Evening, The Fall of Day. If you have any, I don't know, musical interest, this is one of the symbols used by Led Zeppelin, I believe, on the album 4, which is one of the greatest ever. A little bit on sleep loss first. And here we have the effects: chronic sleep loss, carbs, yes, brain, affects your memory, increased fat cell production, hypertension, which is high blood pressure here, and get like you think it's just terrible for you. Joint inflammation, arthritis, makes it hard to recover. Also tends to make you crave sugar for energy, carbs for energy. So you tend to see a correlation, and then it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling, or not self-fulfilling, but a self-perpetuating cycle where you're really sleepy, and then your body craves sugar to kind of wake it up. And then what that does is it spikes your blood sugar, but then you crash lower, and then you end up consuming all of these calories, and then the fluctuation in your blood sugar, you're maybe then less active, and then you're craving more sugar, and it's just this whole cycle. It's not good, but it's tough to break. Part 6, sleep hygiene. Yeah, you can see a video about that, but sleep hygiene, don't use your phone in your bed. You should really kind of avoid artificial light about an hour before bed so that your suprachiasmatic nucleus has the chance to release melatonin, but yeah, it's not realistic. Sleep deprivation, interesting. So rather than so this is sleep loss and sleep debt. Sleep debt meaning that, if you should be getting about 8 hours of sleep, but you've consistently been getting like 6, you build up this debt that you really can't make up. But sleep deprivation generally, little effect on performance of tasks requiring physical skill or intellect. So not necessarily anything that's challenging or that you really have to give selective attention to. It doesn't really affect your performance. However, it does hurt performance on simple or boring tasks. And as you can see here, the most reliable effect of sleep deprivation is just being sleepy. That's the most consistent result. And part of this comes from, hold on, I have to pause this real quick. And I'm back. Okay, that didn't help. So this part I was just saying about performance on difficult tasks, even if you're sleepy, this is something we'll come across in Unit 9, Motivation and Emotion. This is the theory of optimum arousal and the Yerkes-Dodson law. So the Yerkes-Dodson law talks about how arousal, so like the alertness or the activation of your sympathetic nervous system. If you are, like, say, for example, if you need to perform a very difficult task, so like brain surgery, and you're really stressed out, well, you're going to perform really poorly. But if you are more relaxed, so again, if you're kind of sleepy or just kind of just relaxed generally, so a low level of arousal, your performance will be better on difficult tasks. But because it's not that exciting, it's not like you are all jacked up on Mountain Dew. If you're just doing paint by numbers with your niece and nephew, so it's a really easy task, and it's just like, oh man, it's Saturday morning, I'm so tired, I don't want to do paint by numbers. So like your physiological arousal is kind of low. You're just like, this is why whenever anyone over the age of 25, whenever they sit down, they just tend to like doze off. Maybe it's just me, I don't know. Sleep theories. So a number of theories to explain sleep. What is this? link to another video. Restoration, so the brain wears out during the day, and at night it needs to kind of clean up. You got to restore it. It's got to clean up at night, put everything back together, clean up the mess. Also, so the more deep sleep, so short wave sleep, that's what this is down at the bottom, disrupts the removal of amyloid plaque in your brain, and the buildup of amyloid plaques can lead to things like Alzheimer's and other dementia-related disorders. You can read more about that here. A student a couple years ago actually mentioned this to me, which was, quite brilliant. Liam, shout out Liam. Preservation and protection. This is more an evolutionary idea. So back in the day, preservation and protection. So at nighttime, we couldn't see. So it was best to just sleep at that time, conserve your energy, rather than engaging in behavior that could decrease your chances of survival. For example, getting attacked by a lion, falling off a cliff, running into a poisonous bush, giant mutant hawks. Memory consolidation, what is this? Strengthen and stabilize, especially during REM. More on this later. Creative thinking, physical growth. All right, so two types of sleep. Sleep occurs in it occurs in 90-minute cycles throughout the night. You have NREM sleep, so Nacho, Romeo, Edgar, Massachusetts. Again, these are described by the stages and the amplitude and the wave patterns. And then you have rapid eye movement sleep, or REM sleep. This is what when most of your dreaming happens. So it looks like this. I don't know if you could see that, but if you ever watch somebody sleep, then. But now, if you watch anyone sleep and they're dreaming, you can tell because their eyes are moving. And that's kind of how this was determined when researchers were trying to learn more about sleep. They noticed that people were sleeping, and then all of a sudden it was like, and they were like, woke the people up, and they're like, "Dude, what was going on?" They're like, "Dude, I was dreaming about eating nachos on a pool. Why'd you wake me up?" It's like, "Oh, your eyes were moving rapidly." Like, "Oh, this is when sleeping and dreaming happens. How exciting!" This again, Bats D. Table in blue. Here. All right, so these are the both awake states, beta and alpha, most alert, more relaxed, and then I transition into sleep here. NREM1, hypnagogic sensations are NREM1, and this is when if you ever fall asleep, mostly like if you're sitting up, or I don't know if it happens to everybody, but if you're lying on your back, you like flinch like that. Whoa, feels like you're falling, kind of. That's this stage of sleep. It's like when you're first falling asleep. So this might happen like if you were falling asleep somewhere where you're really not supposed to, like in a class or something, you might kind of flinch like that. I remember once in high school, I was sitting in a chair. We used to have a study hall and auditorium with the worst chairs in the history of the world. And I used to fall asleep sitting up, and then I would feel like I was falling out of my chair, like forward. And then everyone would laugh at me. Laugh at me for other reasons too, obviously, that I'm making this video right now, because they knew that back then. It's ridiculous. NREM 2, so this NREM 1, you don't really go back to this throughout the night. It's just when you're initially falling asleep. Then NREM 2, about 20 minutes. This is when you see sleep spindles, and this term is highlighted because it's a common question on AP exams, is about NREM 2 and sleep spindles. This is one of these signatures of that stage. You could be woken up still pretty easily, but you're also still not super in tune with the environment. This again, stage 2 and 3. So now you continue to go in deeper and deeper sleep. Stage 2, these sleep spindles. So you get these guys here. Sleep spindles this burst of activity, and then you start to move towards this here in stage 3. Slow wave, irregular, high amplitude delta waves. That's what this pattern is called, delta waves. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Well, I think they used to do it by the Greek alphabet. There used to be 4 sleep stages. They combined them, but so delta would have been 4: alpha, beta, gamma, delta. What's this? Sleep spindle K complex. This K complex is the part of the transition into stage 3, slow wave sleep. This is a K complex here. It's a spike article down here. NREM 3, right? This is a deep sleep, very hard to awaken. This is when you're out like a light. You're cold. This is like, I think of this as like I used to have a bunch of old cars, and when it was really cold outside, it'd be sometimes really hard to start in the morning, and I think of that as the equivalent of NREM 3. You're in a your system is really calm, or the equivalent of really cool, and then trying to wake up, it's like it takes a while to wake up. But this is an important part of sleep because this is where memory consolidation happens, and then this is also hypothesized why, or theorized, I guess, why memory declines with age is because you have less slow wave sleep as you get older. So here's the time here. And do I have the steps of it? Maybe. Questions here you can think about. If you get this far and see this, you can ask me. REM. So here we are finally. REM sleep. This is when dreaming happens. This is the last part of the sleep cycle. So you've gone, you've started out as awake, and then you go down, down, down to your deepest sleep, and then you cycle back up. So you go from awake 1, 2, 3, 2, REM, 2, 3, 2, REM throughout the night. So this is the most close to wakefulness, and it resembles NREM 1, but this is when most of your dreaming happens. It's called paradoxical sleep because your brain, the activity resembles wakefulness, but you're not actually awake. And then here, same thing, like I said. And this is what sleeping kind of looks like. You go from awake, and then you're going to go down to NREM 1 initially, NREM 2. I guess we should look at young adults. That's you. So here you go 2, 3, 2, NREM, then this way. And then you do wake up periodically throughout the night, but often just don't remember it. And if anyone ever tells you that they don't dream, they're a liar. More on that in a minute. Here's more on sleep. Sleep paralysis. We also experience muscle atonia during sleep. This is evolutionarily adaptive to not have your muscles move. So if you're dreaming about running, your muscles don't move, which is good because then you might hurt yourself. But sometimes it lasts into wakefulness, and that's part of what sleep paralysis is, which can be a very scary thing. And historically, there's a lot of myths about that, like, the monster sitting on your chest. That there's all this kind of stuff, historical legend based on this, that they didn't have better explanations for. So it's related to the idea of perception. You put things in the context of what you understand. And then why are my dreams weird? Well, there's a number of reasons. That came out wrong. But the decreased activity in your prefrontal cortex, so the most developed part of your brain, the most human-y part of your brain that helps with organization, planning, telling time, all that stuff. The activity is decreased, therefore your dreams often are illogically connected, or things that are illogical are put together in your dreams, like, you know, washing your car in the, I don't know, middle of Taco Bell. It's like, why would I be in Taco Bell washing my car? I'd be eating a delicious chalupa. Time is distorted, so sometimes you might, like if your alarm goes off and then you hit the snooze, you might have felt like, if your snooze is set for 10 minutes and but you felt like you dreamt for, I don't know, an hour or something, or you're like, oh, I just fell asleep. It's like, no, I was asleep for 8 hours. I just dreamt though. So that the decreased functioning of the PFC is what contributes to these two things here. Length of sleep increases with each sleep cycle. Yes, you can read that. A little sleepy. Which is interesting too. I'm not going to talk about it now. Here, most days ever awake. I thought this one guy died. I guess not. I don't know. My God, this is still going. Okay. Dreams. Most occurs during REM sleep. Everyone dreams. They just can't remember. The dreams that you do remember are those that were occurring right before you woke up, generally. So you dream throughout the night, throughout the sleep cycles, but you typically will only remember the ones that are right before you wake up. And different substances affect your ability to it's called your sleep architecture. So going through each of the cycles. So one of the most prominent disruptors of sleep architecture is alcohol. That significantly decreases the ability to get restful sleep. So not only is rest not happening, but then also the processes of like cleaning out the junk from the day and then memory consolidation and memory cleanup, all that stuff is limited. So it's, I mean, besides that and the myriad other health risks, it's just, not good. Also increases your estrogen, FYI, for you young adolescent males there. Dream function, so activation synthesis. So your brain's having these random activity as you're processing. You're like cleaning up from the day. You're moving memories into storage, and all of that, as you know, everything biological, everything psychological is biological. As you're putting these memories away, you have this random activity, and your brain takes this activity, and because we like to make sense out of things, it synthesizes it into some kind of story. It tries to make it something coherent. So that's activation synthesis. Um, Other theories of dream function here, this physiological perspective. So it's like the reinforcement of the neural pathways. So you're activating as your brain is trying to preserve and strengthen the pathways. It's going to also activate neurons around there. And that's why, for example, you're like, well, why did I dream about, my 12th birthday party or something? Well, maybe the memory that was trying to be stored from today was being stored near that 12th birthday memory. So while that pathway is being strengthened, it activates the neurons where that memory was stored. I just said that. And then this last one here is information processing. So you can read all of this. Information processing, dreams are the function of, right? And you can read all that. May help, I think this is in English, may help with learning and the consolidation and storage of memories of recent life events. Oh, and because all of your resources are pulled to the hippocampus. Yeah, you can read about that. But this is one of the leading current theories. And then other things about dreams, REM rebound. So if you have not slept, like I just mentioned, alcohol would prevent you from experiencing REM sleep. Um, you then the next time you go to sleep, you're very quickly likely to begin REM sleep. So this happens a lot. My wife, if she isn't getting quality sleep for a while, just because of like her work schedule, she tends to start to immediately dream as soon as she falls asleep. And I know this because she talks in her sleep and she like interacts with her dreams, which is somewhat is atypical to be so active, meaning like talking in your sleep. Is a sign of like you're not really resting because you should be experiencing muscle atonia, which includes talking. But oftentimes that kind of stuff, talking in your sleep, moving in your sleep, they're disorders, but they're often a function of like very intense dreaming. And she's really smart, so that's probably why it's all the storage and activity. She's got to clean all that stuff up from the day. She does a lot of cognitive work. I think, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm going with. Then finally, Freud, he's the interesting one. Even though the most unreliable, least scientific, Freud, we'll talk about later, but he said Freud's were a psychic safety valve to express otherwise unacceptable wishes, desires, yada yada. He called it the royal road to the unconscious. It had two types of content. One is the manifest content, that's the that which is real or that what you see make real. So it's what you actually see in the dream. Like, I'm driving. Wow, I had this dream. I was driving a car with no brakes. Well, the latent content or the underlying meaning is that like I feel like my life is out of control, Bubba. Well, that was actually maybe Bubba's voice for Forrest, but I don't know. It's like it's like a feeling of being out of control. Like I used to have a dream up until I was like 25 that I was going to a football game, but I couldn't find my cleats. I hadn't played football in like 7 years. But Freud would say that the latent content was like felt unprepared for something. Unprepared for what? I don't know. Maybe making this video at 4 o'clock in the morning. You don't have to do that. Sleep disorders, you can read about those in a textbook. Yes, yes, you can read about this. And then lastly, fun words. Somn. So like insomnia means in without somnia, sleep. So this root word here, somn, and then ambulism. So like the word ambulance, it carries people to the hospital. So somnambulance is sleepwalking. Somniloquy, that's also fun. Talking in your sleep. Well, the word is fun. It's not always fun for people who are sleeping near you. And then finally, night terrors are different than nightmares. Night terrors typically occur during NREM 3, and there's a strong physiological reaction, like as if you're under attack. And then often people can't be woken up during this time, so it's like really scary for the people witnessing it. And you have difficulty being woken up because it's NREM 3. And yeah, really scary stuff if you've ever seen it. There's links down here. For stuff like that. But so that differs from nightmares, which are just, I mean, can be equally scary. But these are bad dreams, whereas night terrors are not, well, as far as anyone knows, not dreams, but it's just a physiological reaction that looks like somebody could be having a nightmare, but they're having the reaction of like extreme terror. And nightmares, again, they happen during REM sleep, and if they're recurrent or prevent normal sleep, then it's something that would be useful to seek treatment about. I already said that. Hallucinations, you can read that. That's also a state of consciousness. Related to psychoactive drugs, you know about all this stuff from health class, you can read that. Other fun facts here. Tolerance requiring more and more. Withdrawal, you can see that. We'll talk about these. We'll talk about withdrawal when we talk about learning theories in the next unit. Addiction can happen with anything. It's compulsive, meaning difficulty stopping despite efforts, or feeling compelled to, urged to perform a behavior or thought, even um, despite known adverse consequences. That's what an addiction is. So addiction can really, by strict definition, you can have an addiction to anything, as long as it's something that you continue to do despite adverse consequences that you're aware of. Things about drugs, you can read about them here. Different categories: depressants, stimulants, more things. That's it. That wraps up Unit 4A, States of Consciousness, Dreams, and Psychoactive Drugs. Thank you for watching, and remember, students, that even in 2021, learning is fun.